What's up, internet? My name's Ori. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. You like this video, hit that like button, hit that notification bell. You'll never miss a video. You'll never miss a stream. Today, we're breaking down the first 5 episodes. Yes, 5 episodes of the brand new season of the revival of The Mole. Yes, the show that used to air back, I think the last season was back in 2008, has been revived by Netflix for a brand new season. And I'm going to tell you right off the bat, this was awesome. I loved this show. It is fantastic. If you're unfamiliar with the concept, we have 12 players here, and they're all kind of working to try and make money for the pot. You can see that resembled right in the middle of our chart here with the big 0, because, hey, we haven't even had an episode that we've talked about yet. I'm going to kind of update that as we go along. But their main goal is to complete these missions. There's mind games thrown in there as well, all to try and get that pot as big as possible, because whoever wins takes home the whole thing. Here's the catch. One of them is a plant. One of them is the mole. And we as viewers don't know who the mole is, so we get to kind of play along as well to try and figure out who is the mole, who's the one kind of sabotaging. Is this person just a bad player, or are they trying to get sus on them to make the other players think they're the mole? There's a lot that goes into it. And then at the end of the mission, after they're all done, all of them take a quiz. Whoever gets the lowest score on that quiz on who they think the mole is eliminated. So it's kind of like all of my favorite reality shows mixed into one. You've got The Challenge, Survivor, Big Brother, The Amazing Race. It's kind of all of it shoved together into this crazy show, and I loved every minute of this. Let's start off with just kind of meeting our players. We've got Avery, Casey, Vaughn, Jacob, Joy, Kessie, Osei, Dom, Samara, Greg, Sandy, and William. Those are our 12 players, one of whom is the mole. And like I said, we get to play along. In fact, Netflix actually set up a website where you can take a quiz to try and see how close you are to it as well. I'll have links for that down in the description, but we will be doing that quiz at the end of this video, so make sure you stick around to the end to see how well I am at figuring out who the mole is. I have a few suspects already, but let's get into it. The first episode, we actually are in Australia, so all these episodes took place in Australia. I don't know if eventually they're going to be taking place somewhere else. I haven't really looked that deeply into locations. I kind of wanted to avoid any spoilers if they might be out there or whatnot. But all of these episodes took place in different areas in Australia. And this first episode drops them off in the jungle, where all the players eventually meet up at this crash landing plane. It's kind of a plane wreckage. And they get their first mission right off the bat. They have to break up into 3 groups. One to go high, low, and what they ended up calling it H2O. So one cargo package would be up in the trees. There'd be another cargo package buried underground somewhere, and another one that was in a river in some water. And they had an hour to go out, get these packages, bring them back to the plane. Each one was worth $5,000 to the pot. So they wanted to bring back as many as they could. And they then had to keep them safe overnight. Keep in mind on that, because that's going to come back up later. But they broke up into the groups. So for the team that went high, we had Avery, William, Kessie, and Dom. Then we had the down low. That was Osei, Samara, Sandy, and Joy. Then for Team H2O, we had Casey, Pravav, and Greg and Jacob go with that group. And yeah, Dom came up with this really cool thing where he's like, yeah, we've got Team High, Team Low, Team H2O. Dom and William right off the bat became 2 of my favorite players in the whole thing, and I was like, man, it'd be really cool if one of them ended up being the mole, because they seem to really connect really well on their on the show. But we'll get to how things develop with them. So, like I said, they had to go and find these crates in these different locations. Each team, they had a map that they had to follow. And then once they got there, they had different things they would have to do. So, right off the bat, Greg, he's really way too much. He's really, really way too much. He brought like a triangle, and it was kind of funny because Osei kind of called him out right away. He's like, "Who brings a triangle? This man's the mole." So he was calling him out to be the mole right away. But yeah, he's I don't know. There was just something about him. He's telling that he thinks he knows who the mole is because when he finds it, he's just gonna know it in his gut. And he claims he knows like why each person chose to go with which team because Team Tall wanted to kind of feel like they call themselves Team Tall, but Team High wanted to go with the heroes. Team Low, they were kind of going down in the dirt like moles. And then Team H2O was, or Team Low was the people who didn't want to go for the water, which he said was the hardest one. It was this whole weird thing he had, but yeah, he was definitely already getting on my nerves a little bit. But again, they had to go get these cargo things. They were worth 5K each. They're headed on out into the jungle, and they have to kind of navigate using a map to find the locations they have to go to. Each team has different ones, so they kind of split off. They also have a clue in these duffel bags that have equipment that they have to use. If they open the clue, it would cost them 2,500, so half of their case if they were able to bring it back. Team High and Team H2O, they make it to their objective pretty fine, right? They get to the trees. There's these ropes kind of hung up. They see the cargo box up in this net up at the top of the trees up there. They're going to have to figure out how to climb up there. Team H2O, they make it to the river, but they do kind of struggle in like figuring out where everything is. Their main task is to find the crate in the first place, and they kind of struggled with that. Meanwhile, Team Low, they had some issues. They had some issues reading a map, and Joy is a pilot. So Joy was like, hey, I'll navigate, I should be good at this. And they pretty much ran in circles. They had a really hard time with this first mission. Team High kind of crushes it. Avery says she was a climber, so she really had a good idea on how the harnesses and the ropes all worked, and they were able to get her up to that cargo net that had the crate in it pretty quickly, but there were knots up there that she was kind of struggling with, so they ended up sending, who was it that they sent up there with her? That was Kessie. So they sent Kessie up there to William and who was on that team? Dom? Was it William and Dom? I'm checking over my notes again just to see who was on that one. Yeah, William and Dom, they kind of raised them up there to get that crate. Eventually they do get it down, so they kind of crush it, and they start making their way on back to the plane. Meanwhile, over on Team H2O, Greg wants to open the clue. He's like, listen, we can't find this thing. It's a struggle. Like, we really should open it. The others are kind of hesitant on it, but they do end up opening it, but it really doesn't help them find it, right? So the clue was that there was a secret drawer on the crate, and if they open that, they would get a crowbar, and that would help them open the crate to get their cargo box that they needed. But they still needed to find it, which they eventually do. Once they do get the crate open with the clue, they're able to find the crowbar. It was pretty quick once they do find it, and they start heading on back. But like I said, Team Down Low, they never make it. They never make it to their location where they're supposed to dig. They don't even open their bag to check the clue or anything. There's lots of susness going on around, but two of the teams do make it back. One of them did open their clue, so that ends up being $7,500 into the bank account. So hey, we're in the money. We're in the money. They're back at the plane. Everybody's kind of kumbayaing around the fire, getting to know each other. But remember, they have to keep these crates safe through the night. And if they don't have those crates when they're leaving, they don't get that money for that crate. So things are going good, right? Like I said, they're getting to know each other. They're kind of talking about, you know, what they do as their jobs. I heard he talked about how Dom and William were together, and I really started to like the two of them. There was one point where Dom was calling them Thor and Iron Man. It was kind of funny. There was also another funny little bit when they were doing the campfire stories, where they were like, you know, Dom, what's your biggest fear? And he says an owl. They're like, an owl? He's like, yeah, you ever see an owl run? They're like, have you ever seen an owl run? He's like, yeah, in my nightmares. So I was really enjoying Dom. He was one of my favorites. William was another one I really liked as well. So they were kind of like my early favorites as people I liked. But again, one of them could be the mole. We don't know. So maybe even though they're likable, even as a fan, you can't trust them that they aren't up to no good. So eventually they all kind of head to sleep, and they wake up in the morning and be like, oh yeah, how's everybody doing? How'd you sleep? How's it going? And one of the cargo cases is missing. So remember that $7,500? Yeah, scratch that, because that was actually the one that was up in the tree. And remember, they didn't use their clue, so that was the one that was worth $5,000. So their new total is only $2,500 in the bank. Helicopters end up coming to pick them up. And they take them on a journey to this like super villain like house. Dom actually called it like the Avengers, the Avengers location. That's where he brought up the Iron Man and Thor reference. But it was a really cool location. That's one of the things I really liked about this show. All the locations they were using were really cool and unique. Really brought just a great backdrop for all of these different missions that they were having to do. So they get to the house and they meet up with the host, Alex, who is awesome. I really like her a lot as a host. She's fun. She's got like a really good, you know, rapport with the cast. She feels like she's doing a great job. And she kind of does a debrief like, hey, what happened? Like, one of your cases was missing. Does anybody know what was going on? And they show some footage of the case being stolen at night. It's like, wait, who's the case? Are they really gonna reveal who the mole is right now? William stole the case. And it was interesting because William actually said when everybody woke up and they realized the case was gone, William's like, yeah, I was up all night. He was like clearing people. He's like, I know it wasn't this person. I know it wasn't this person, because they were right next to me the whole time. I only slept for like half an hour. So what happened here? He had a secret mission. So when they first got to the plane, all of their equipment they were going to need, the maps, the duffel bags, all that stuff was inside the plane. And he was the first one to head on in there. And on the bags was a note that told him that he had a secret mission. If he was able to steal one of the cases, he would double the value for that case. So he ended up stealing the case that came from the tree, which means since nobody found out, he doubled the value, and that brings them up to $12,500. So wonderful job by William there, but also made people a little bit suspicious. They were like, maybe he's doing that to throw off suspicion of himself. Is he kind of just, you know, playing the good guy, but he's really the mole? It's like, hey, look, I put money into the pot, but really he's going to end up, you know, sabotaging things later down the line. Still have some questions about him myself, but we'll see. And that brings us to the first elimination. 20 questions on who you think the mole is. Lowest score gets eliminated. You know, it's kind of a very simple quiz, right? It's basic things like, oh, you know, is the mole married? What color eyes do they have? What group were they in? And then the final question, of course, is who do you think the mole is. And there is some strategy in this as well, because you don't want to just focus in and be like, okay, I think it's William. And if you think it's William and then you say like, yeah, the mole's got long blonde hair, blue eyes, he's, 6 feet tall, and it's William, and you're wrong, you're probably going to get eliminated. So the real strategy in answering this quiz is to play, averages, right? Like go for kind of generic things that can apply to multiple people. Maybe hedge your bets a little bit. But you have to be careful with that too, because again, if you're the lowest and you do the worst, you are eliminated. So it's really not an easy game here to play. Anyone can go at any point. After the quiz, everybody kind of sits around the table and they go one by one, revealing who has the lowest score, who is safe if they have these phones on them. And if the phone turns green, you're safe. You don't want to see a red light because that means you are eliminated. And when we get to the end of episode 1, there's only 3 people left: William, Joy, and Osei. Those are the only ones who are not safe yet. We don't get the reveal of who's eliminated until episode 2. So that is the end of episode 1. If you haven't watched all the way through yet, if you haven't watched episode 2, this is when we're going to start talking about it. So there's your spoiler warning. Let's get into it. Joy is safe. It's down to William and Osei. And Osei is the first contestant, the first player to be eliminated. He does not have a shot to win the money. Goodbye to you. See you later. We're down to 11 people. Crazy already. And then it's time for a little travel to the city of Bringsbing. Bringsbing? Bringsbing. The city of Bringsbing, Australia. That's where the next mission takes place. And we get actually a little bit of some game talk in the cars, because all the players are kind of separated. They can't fit them all into one car. And Avery and Pranav, they form like a little alliance. They're like, hey, let's, share some information with each other, kind of work together. But you got to be careful, because what if you're working with the mole and they're just leading you down the wrong path, and then you're screwed and you're eliminated because you're getting bad information from the mole? It's really a crazy hard game to really kind of get into. This was when I really started liking Pranav. He comes across as a very smart player, seems to know what he's doing, has a good head on his shoulders, but also, could he be the mole? Could he be the mole? That's the question, and it's what makes this show that much more fun. Even if you have a favorite, even if there's somebody you're starting to like, you're never quite sure. Are they up to something? So we actually head to a abandoned prison. And with this mission, they have to choose 2 masterminds. They ended up choosing Dom as the first one, Casey as the second one. And they're actually broken down into 3 groups. These 3 groups are going to be broken into different cell blocks in the prison. It's a jailbreak. They got to break out of jail. So we had cell block F, which was Jacob, Pranav, Sandy. Then we had cell block E, which was William, Avery, and Samara. And then we had cell block G, which was Greg, Joy, and Kessie. There was actually even some strategy with this too, because Dom and Casey were the ones to kind of split the groups. It's like, who do you want to put with each other? Who do you trust? There's so much that goes into this game, and it's really fantastic. So like I said, it's a jailbreak. Each person is in an individual cell. Each cell block is exactly the same. So they're all identical, but each individual cell has different things in them to have to break out, and they're all going to have to work together to each get out of their cell. If they can all make it back, they'll win the money, but it's all or nothing. If they don't make it out, that's it. No money for them. They only have 1 hour to do it, and there's $10K on the line. So, is it $10K? Actually, it was $20K. 20K, I believe, was on the line here, right? Is that what it was? Yeah, it was 20K on the line. So we start off and things are going well, but the masterminds, they get a little mind game action going on already. They get offered a deal and they say, listen, you can double the pot. So this was where it was. This is why I was getting a little confused here. It was 10K to start it off. But the masterminds got a offer. They could double the money, but they have to take 10 minutes off the clock. So instead of an hour, they would only have 50 minutes to complete the whole thing. Dom seems like he's down. He's like, let's do this, right? Like double the money, let's have some faith in our people here. Casey's hesitant. She's like, I don't know if we should take 10 minutes off. What if that 10 minutes means, everything, right? What if they don't get back in time? Because if not everybody gets here, we don't get anything. So it's either 20K or none of it. They ended up going for it. They double it all. So we're going for 20K here in this mission. Samara started to look a little sus because there was a key that was outside of one of the cells, and they're calling over to them like, hey, do you see anything outside my cell? And she's looking over and she's like, nah, there's nothing outside your cell. Don't worry about it. When there was a key sitting right outside the door, which she didn't see, but maybe it's just bad eyesight, right? Jacob was actually one of the first ones to get out of his cell, so he actually used the blanket from his bed and like some other stuff, some makeshift stuff to kind of swing something out of his cell to kind of kick that key closer to him so he could grab it. And once he's out, it's kind of off to the races for their cell block. He's able to get Pranav out, and then they're able to get who was else in block F? Sandy. So block F, they get all out, they succeed, and they're good. There was actually a little bit of a genius move from Will. So in Will's cell, he had a chessboard, and on these chess pieces there was like a little magnet, and he's like sticking around. He's trying to figure out what this used for. But again, remember, Samara, she didn't see the key outside his door, so he's like, man, like, what am I supposed to use this for? Eventually, he kind of goes, all right, I can see something down there. I don't know what it is. I'm going to try and get it. So he ties the chess piece to his blanket. He throws it out the door and is able to snag the key off the ground once he's able to get out. And he, again, was very sus of Samara for this. He's like, hey, she couldn't see that was a key. Like, she couldn't do it. So once one person gets out, it gets very close, and they're able to kind of finish up. So block E is really close to getting out. But as that's happening, the masterminds get another deal. They say, hey, listen, if you think there's one of the blocks in there that needs a little bit of help, is struggling, for 1K out of the pot, you can buy a clue. Dom doesn't want to this time. He was all for doubling the money to take away 10 minutes, but to give a clue to take away 1K, he's not feeling it. Casey, on the other hand, is like, yeah, I think we should do this. We should get the clue, try and give them as much help as possible. And they do. They do end up taking the deal, so that's 1K out of the total that they'll end up getting. And it ends up being a phone call. There was a cell phone hidden in the cell. And they chose right with it. They ended up giving it to Block G, who was the one that was struggling. So they ended up calling. They were like, hey, the chess pieces are, I think that's what it was. The clue was that the chess pieces were magnetic. So they end up using that to get out. And it was close. It was really close there because D ended up escaping. And time was really running low. So the masterminds had one more little deal that they had sent their way. For 5K, they could add 5 minutes. Dom, again, didn't want to take money away. He wanted to put money into the pot. Meanwhile, Casey was all for it. And they were hesitant about it, but they definitely needed that time because it was running down there at the end. He felt like he had no choice. So they take that deal that would be end up being 6K to come out of the total if they end up winning this. And it literally comes down to seconds seconds to spare for them to succeed. So they end up getting the 20K because they doubled it, but you got to minus the 6K from that. So they end up getting $14,000 into their bank, bringing their total here, as I update our little score, to $26,500 in the pot. They're doing pretty good. They're not doing too bad so far right now. They got a lot of money in the pot. They're succeeding in missions, right? Like, it's close, but they're doing it. And you know, things seem to be going well. Then they have a long drive they end up taking to a spooky warehouse, and they're like, man, I thought we were going for like an elimination here. Like, we were going to go to dinner and have another quiz. But it's another little task. So they had them split up into 2 cars. You had car 1, which was Dom, Jacob, Joy, William, Kessa, and Samara. Then you had car 2, which was Casey, Avery, Pranav, Greg, and Sandy. And they actually split them by car, so they get put into separate rooms. It was, I think, Sector 31 and Sector 45, they were calling it. But there was kind of a little dilemma they put on them. They said, hey, listen, if you guys sit in this room and you do nothing, 10K will go into the pot. But there's a big red shiny button right there. And if one team presses that button, they get an exemption. They don't have to compete in the quiz, but no 10K. No 10K for the pot. If both teams press the button, whoever presses it first will be safe from the quiz, and still no 10K. But if you want to press your button, there's a password that you have to get, and you have to put that password in. That unlocks your button, and then you can press it. So car 2, the section 31, or section 45, I believe that's what car 2 was. They want to push. Right away, they're like, all right, we're pushing this button, right? Car 1, on the other hand, they were in section 31, and they're like, we just sit back and do nothing, right? Like, if everybody just relaxes and we don't do anything, that's 10K, goes in the pot, and we're good. So car 2, they start heading out. They have to go to another room and go through, you know, all these different clues that they have in there. They were told that, hey, listen, there will be a table in this other room, and everything you need for the password will be in that table. Keyword is in that table. So they're going there. There's a big table of elements. There's all different, you know, letters that are circled on there. There's things written on the blackboard. Card 2 is really rushing. They're trying to get this clue. They're trying different passwords. They put an attempt in there, and then it tells them like, hey, after 3 attempts, you get locked out. So you gotta kind of be careful with this. Like, you get unlimited tries, but if you try 3 times, it's kind of like a cell phone password, right? If you fail to put the password in right, it gets locked out for a minute, and then you can try again. It's kind of that deal. Now, there's also another little aspect to this as well. There's a phone in each room that the players were supposed to be staying in if they weren't going for it. And at different intervals, that phone would ring, and they would have to answer it. 2 players had to stay in that room at all times with that phone. And, you know, they get to see, like, hey, how's everything going over there? You guys being good? You're not trying to do that password to press the button, are you? No, we're just relaxing. We're chilling. Don't worry about it. Greg was actually the one for car 2 in section 45. He was just, yeah, you know, I'm just hanging out. And that was his whole deal. He's like, listen, I'm not lying because I'm just talking about myself. I'm hanging out. I'm not trying to solve the password. I'm just here talking on the phone. And the first phone call goes all right. They seem to kind of, you know, play the ruse off enough that, yeah, everything's fine. On the second phone call, though, this is when chaos starts to erupt because they start saying like, yeah, hey, how's everything going? Oh, it's Greg again, and we're only talking to Greg. Is everybody else there? And Greg's like, yeah, sure. And he's like, hey, get everybody back here. He's like, get him back here. We need to talk to him on the phone. So they go and they send somebody to get the others. I forget who it was. It might have been Sandy. I think it was Sandy. Yeah, it was Sandy. They sent her to go get Avery Purvan and Casey to come on back to the phone. She gets Pranav to come back to the phone, but Sandy ends up staying with them in the room, and they're like, you were supposed to bring all of them back. And Pranav's put on the phone. He's like, yeah, hey, how's it going? And they're like, hey, you're not trying to solve the clue. He's like, nah, I'm not in the room. I mean, I am. What? No. And he just kind of hangs up. He just hangs up the phone. And that's when the other team are like, all right, they're pushing their button. We got to try and hurry up and get this clue and figure it out. So car one, they start trying now. They head to this other room where all the clues are, and they trying to figure out what this password could possibly be. The whole time I kept thinking in my head too about that Zoolander bit where they're like, yeah, the files are in the computer, and they're like, they're in the computer, and they start like trying to open the computer up because that was actually the real task. So they ended up giving them like another little clue over the message board speaker, and they're like, hey teams, the clue that you need, the password that you need, everything is in the table. And that's when it clicks with all the teams are like, oh, we've got to take this thing off the wall and start breaking it apart. Once they do, they find a piece of paper in there, and they're able to figure out that the password is salvation. And both teams rush back to try and push the password in. Sandy actually pulled a little bit of a stuff do that kind of made me think like, oh, like Sandy's the mole at this point. Like I'm like fairly convinced like, oh, she's doing a lot here. She's doing a lot here to kind of mess everything up, right? Like this seems obvious. First, she stays in the other room to kind of mess up the phone call stuff. Then she's putting in a password to kind of lock them out so they can't put the password in right away. It was kind of wild, and I'm like, Sandy, you're that mole, aren't you? Like, this is like suspect number one on my list as things are breaking down here. And we end up going with both teams getting the password in. They show both teams pressing the button, but who pressed first? That also means no 10K is going into the pot. One of the teams will be exempt from the quiz, and they won't have to take it. And that's kind of where episode 2 ends, and we go into episode 3. So again, here's your little spoiler warning. We're heading into episode 3, and we start off with the reveal, and tensions are high because team section 31, car 1, which had half the group in it, they were not happy with the other half of the group, realizing like, oh, you guys could have just waited. You could have done nothing, and we would have got 10K. The only reason we ended up trying to do it was because we heard you guys going off on it. So tensions were high. You could really almost like cut it with a knife, and it was close. It was very close, but car 2, section 45, they pressed first, which means section 31 would be the one, car number 1 would be the team that has to take the quiz. So that's Dom, Jacob, Joy, William, Kessie, and Samara. So one of them will be the one who is eliminated. They all take the quiz. They go one by one on, who will be eliminated. And it ended up being Samara who is eliminated. She got the lowest score on the quiz, so she is eliminated from the game. After that, it's off to the Great Barrier Reef. They have a mission there, which is all about. Before we actually get to that mission, there was another little mind game that was added in. Kind of similar concept with the one we just had, where it was like, hey, you could do nothing and you get 10K, or you could press a button and you're safe. This one was a decision. They had to decide whether or not they wanted to read these dossiers on all of the players. And if no one read them, 10K would go into the pot. If even one person were to read these files on the other player, no 10K. So it's tough because if you're in there, right? Like you almost have to know someone's going to do it. So do you just do it? Or maybe you don't. But there was another little note on there and it said if you do not read it and you have integrity, that integrity will be rewarded. But they didn't know how that was going to be rewarded, and that comes up big later on as well. It was kind of just a test of wills. Do you look at the info? Do you not? Do you think other people will? Do you want to try and see what that reward for your integrity will be later? Do you think this info is going to help you in the quiz? It's a really tough decision on what to do here, but we won't find out what actually happened until later, right before the quiz, whether or not somebody took it or not. That heads to the mission, and the mission is to split up into two teams, one that would go in a boat, one that would go in a plane. Now the boat, they had to get these cases, this treasure that was under the water, and they had to get equipment to use that. Well, how are they going to get that equipment to get those cases up? From the plane. They had to find the equipment and then take the equipment to the people in the boat who, meanwhile, while they're doing that, they're kind of searching the water to see if they can find where these cases are even located. I really love all these missions. They're really a lot of fun, and it's interesting to watch because there's so many opportunities for someone to sabotage in just subtle little ways, and you're never quite sure, like, is this person just a bad swimmer, or are they trying to make sure that they lose this mission? So the people on the plane ended up going up. That was Pranav, Avery, Dom, Kessa, and Sandy. They're the ones who end up in the plane. On the boat, you had Will, Greg, Jacob, and Joy. And actually, right before this, we had gotten and Casey. Casey was also on the boat because we had gotten a talk from Greg and Casey about how, like, hey, I actually had like scuba diving training. And it was like a 3-day course. Greg's like, I was a 5-day course. So they both seem like they would have, been pretty good in this. Joy, surprisingly, a pilot, didn't want to go in the plane, which you would think would be like right in her wheelhouse to, go up into the plane, be able to spot something from the plane and be able to see. But she wanted to keep Will close because Joy is a little suspect on Will. She's not too sure what's going on with that. Avery, actually, she has this little idea. She's like, look, I think it might be smart for me to like subtly sabotage, put the target on me so that other players vote for her. Or is this just her saying it because she's the mole and she's going to be doing this? But this was her plan, was to, like, right off the bat, she's like, yeah, I'm going to kind of, phone it in on this one. And her and Kessie, they actually end up missing the little buoy that was hidden on the shoreline. And it's Pranav who ends up spotting it. And he's like, I'm not sure. What is she? Is she just doing this little, plan that she has? Or is she the mole? Like, what's going on? They then had to go land. They were in this, like, pontoon boat that gets to land on the water. So they land on the water, and then they got to kind of go hike and get the equipment, take it back to the boat. And while they're doing that, Avery also ends up doing a little bit of sabotage. There was an oxygen tank she was carrying, and she just she ditches it. She's like, see you later. Like, what? And Dom's like, yo, where did it go? What did you do with it? She's like, it's back there. It's back there somewhere, So he's got to go kind of run and get it. Meanwhile, over in the water, William, who was probably like their best swimmer, he ends up cutting his hand on some of the coral. And that means he can't go back in the water. They won't let him do it. So that really kind of hinders the boat people as well, trying to find the chest. Because once the plane team got there, the other team didn't even find all the chests yet. Like, they didn't even know where in the water it was. So even though they're getting the equipment, they're like, we still got to find this stuff. But eventually they do end up finding it. They start using the equipment. Because William can't get in the water, Greg has to get in. And he ends up kind of dropping the tank. Is he throwing the mission, or is he just, Butterfingers, right? Like, what is going on? But in the end, they end up failing the mission to get all the cases. They only got one case, which was actually ended up being worth $2,000. So that ends up bringing the pot up, though. Still, right? They're still gaining money, right? They're doing a decent job, right? You're getting something. So they're up to $28,500. But did somebody look at the dossiers? Did somebody take a look at the information? Did they try and get an advantage by getting more info on their other players? Of course they did. Of course they did. So Greg is revealed to have looked. So did Avery. So no 10K was added on in. But remember, there was a little reward for people who had integrity, right? Like, if you didn't look at the dossier, you would get rewarded. What would that reward be? Well, is an interesting one. You could place a bid for however much you wanted from the pot. And if your bid was the highest and you got it right, you would get an exemption from the quiz. If you got it wrong, it would go to the next bid, and whoever was the highest, they would be exempt from the quiz. And it's revealed that someone, right? Because most of them, they wrote down like, hey, maybe like $5,000. I think the average, they ended up saying, Alex, the host, was like, yeah, $7,000, right? That was the average. One ended up bidding $25,000 from the pot. Now remember, if they're right with this guess, that money gets taken out of the pot. It gets removed. Like, they lose all of that money if they guessed right on who looked at the dossier. And that's where the episode ends. So that was the end of episode 3, which takes us into episode number 4. And remember, we're going with this 25K bid. First off, who made this bid? And second, were they right? Because if they were right, we lose that money from the pot. Joy is revealed as the one to make this bid. 25K. And the rest of the group are shocked. They're like, why would you bid that much money? Like, for exemption? Like, you're taking 25K out of the pot if you're right with this. 25K. So Joy makes the bid. Was she right? Who did she guess? And she ended up guessing Greg. She picked right. That means 25K out of the pot, bringing the total to $3,500. A huge blow. A huge blow to the game. If you're one of the players, you have to be furious at Joy. Furious that she would be the mole. Like, this is an easy way for someone to go, oh yeah, like, that's the mole. But is it too obvious? Is Joy the mole? Is she not the mole? So she doesn't have to take the quiz. It's now up to the quiz, and, whoever gets last, that's it. You're gone. See you later. And it's Dom. Dom, the one who is the most adamant about saving money and trying to get the most amount of money into the pot, gets eliminated. Meanwhile, Joy, who takes the most amount of money out of the pot, is safe and gets to stay. And this was, again, another one of those moments where Pranav, I was like, ooh, that's a good line, man. He's like, yeah, it's kind of poetic, isn't it? Poetic. The one who wanted to care about the pot as much as they could get sent, and the one who took 25K out is safe. It's almost poetic in a way. So Dom is gone, and they're headed to the Outback, and it's in the Ravenswood section. But wait, Dom isn't gone. Dom is in a car outside of the saloon that all the players are in, having a nice little powwow, hanging out. He's getting a second chance to come back into the game. This is crazy. Not only does he get a second chance to come back into the game, if he succeeds, that's 10K that's going in the pot. They can make up a little less than half of what they lost just last night. But he needs the remaining players to help him. So on the back of his car, there's a bumper sticker with the name of a city, and he's got a list of cities. He's also got questions to ask all of the players, and he's got a radio. He can call into the players and say, like, hey, what's your hometown? What's, asking them questions, and the answer would be a city. If they were truthful, it would help him kind of eliminate that city, and whatever one was left would be the password to unlock the doors. 10K in the pot. So right off the bat, they start with Pranav. He's like, hey, Pranav, buddy, where is your favorite sports team? What city is that located in? It's like, hey, Philly, baby. Go Birds. Fly, Eagles, fly. Like, yo, all right, Pranav, I started liking you a couple episodes ago. You're my guy now. Like, you're my guy. He might be the mole. He might be the mole, but he's my guy. I am riding hard for Pranav. I'm loving this dude. I said earlier, he's pretty smart. Like, he's got a good head on his shoulders. He seems like he's doing really well. But again, he could also be the mole. We're not sure. So that's one off the board. And then it gets to Sandy, and they're like, all right, Sandy, like, what city? And she's like, no. Yeah, no. I'm not helping. Yeah, I'm not helping. No, I'm not going to answer that question. And this starts the debate on whether or not they bring him back. And they're like, look, like, yeah, that's 10K, but we're bringing another player back in. It lowers all of our odds in this game. He's also going to have an idea on what he answered in the quiz. And based off of his answers and being the lowest one, whatever direction he is, he's going to know who isn't the mole. So they feel like, hey, like, we shouldn't be able to be bringing him back. And that kind of brings me to the question, like, what would you guys do? Would you bring him back, try and get that 10K in, or do you let him go off into the sunset? But he still has a chance, because he can kind of guess. He can try and work this out based on, like, how well he knows the players. And he kind of gets it down to a 50-50. And his 50-50 is going to be close. Will he get it right? No. He gets it wrong. Dom is eliminated. He is gone from the game. He almost had a second chance, almost brought 10K with him, but he's gone for good. So this takes us to our next mission, and it's a good old-fashioned bank heist. So we're going to have to break into two teams again. 20K will be on the line here. They had to pick two critical thinkers. First, Avery kind of volunteers, and Will pushes back right away. He's like, I don't know about this. Is this really a good idea? They end up going with Kessie and Pranav. They're picked as kind of the masterminds, and they then have to decide how to split the two teams into a team Cash and a team Gold. Pranav is going to be the leader of Team Cash. He chooses Jacob, Avery, and Sandy to be on that team. Kessie is Team Gold. You've got Will, Joy, Casey, and Greg on that one. The leaders are kind of up in these rooms. They've got radios to talk to the teams. They've got cameras to kind of look and see how things are going. They've also got info that they can look at on the boards, and they have to kind of pass along this information to help the others succeed in the mission. Cash has to sort through kind of a mixed bag of currency. There's American dollars, there's, UK dollars, there's dollars from all over the place. And they have to get out with 10K US exactly. No more, no less. So not only do they have to sort through this, they have to count it, they have to convert it. Pranav has kind of a sheet that he can look at. It's all on a big board there, like, oh, this is how much this currency works, and this one, and this one, and this one. So that's kind of their goal. Over on Team Gold, they have to steal 10K worth of gold from safety deposit boxes. But in order to get to those deposit boxes, first they have to get through some lasers. And if they hit 3 lasers, it's done. Game over. Like, they're already done. So that's the first test. And Will ends up hitting a laser. He's the kind of the first one to make it through, but he does hit a laser. But luckily, everybody else gets through, nobody else hits a laser, and they're moving on to the safety deposit boxes. They have keys, and meanwhile, Kessie has a logbook of like different names and what safety deposit box they own, and she's got to be able to try and relay this information to them, and they have to try and figure out which of these boxes has the gold in them, because not all of them are. So Team Gold, they start opening up the different boxes, and they're finding junk, just lots of junk, no gold in them for any of them. So they really have to figure out, like, what does this logbook mean? Which boxes are we supposed to be opening, and what's the deal with that? Meanwhile, Team Cash, they're counting money, they're trying to figure out what's going on. Avery gets really sus on Jacob, who ended up counting wrong. And it wasn't even like foreign currency. He was counting up US dollars, and he's like, she's like, oh, what's this? He's like, oh, that's a stack of 50. She's like, all right, I'm going to recount it. And she's like, yeah, some of these had 49. Some of these had 51, 52. Like, he was counting wrong. It seemed like he was sabotaging in the moment. So is he the mole? Or is he just bad at counting cash? You guys have all counted bills before. Sometimes they stick together. Sometimes it's a little rough, right? Maybe you double slid one over. So you never really know. But Avery seems to be like, oh, like he was 100% sabotaging this. And she doesn't call him out on it. She doesn't share this information with anybody. But she's keeping it in the back of her head to kind of remember, like, all right, I have to keep my eye out for Jacob. Gold, they end up with nothing. They don't get any boxes open with gold in it. They ended up with none of it. It's just junk after junk after junk. Cash thinks they have the 10K. They get out of there. Gold gets literally nothing, and they feel defeated as they head on out. And that takes us kind of the debrief where they kind of go over what happened. And this is when they learned that Kessie was missing, that the names in the ledger, some of them were actually kind of famously associated with gold. For example, it was like G Locks, Goldilocks, El Dorado. One of them was like K Midas for King Midas, right? And she completely just did not catch on to this. She had no clue what was going on there. So that's when they were like, oh, well, that kind of explains that. How did Cash do, though, right? They got 10K, they think, right? But did they get 10K, right? Like, how much did they actually take? Even $1 over. If they're $1 off, under or over, they don't get it. They don't get the money. But that's where this episode ends. They keep doing this to us. They have these little cliffhangers to kind of keep you hanging on, to keep you watching the next episode. And that takes us to episode number 5. So again, here's your little spoiler warning. If you're not fully caught up, make sure you go watch the episode first. We're jumping into what happened. Episode number 5. What did the Cash team take? $1 over, $1 under. It's a loss, right? You have to be exactly at 10K US dollars. And they have $10,678. Avery still is pretty sure that Jacob was sabotaging and kind of messed things up. Pranav has this idea that Sandy was messing things up, because when they were counting, he's like, well, she had it be like 50K or 500K, like whatever the bill was worth, and they relayed that wrong. So they ended up getting no money. It's still $3,500 in the pot. That is it. It's a miserable pot, thanks to Joy. And that takes us into the quiz. So, who is it? Who is the one to get eliminated? It's Sandy. Sandy is gone. She is eliminated from the competition. That bottom row down there is not looking good, is it? I didn't set this up like in any particular order on how I was going to do the chart, but that bottom row bottom row is not looking too good after 4 episodes here. So Sandy is the next one to go, and I'm actually surprised here because Sandy was one of my main suspects for who the mole was. I was like, yo, Sandy's the mole. I'm like really positive that Sandy's with the mole here, but it wasn't. It wasn't Sandy. I was wrong on that one. I admit it. I was fully wrong. But hey, listen, I haven't taken my quiz yet. My quiz comes at the end of this. We're still going to get to that. Don't go anywhere. If you're following along, right after we're done with recapping this episode, kind of some talking points, some questions I want to ask you, we're going to get into the actual quiz and try and see, maybe I'm onto something. Maybe I have an idea on who the mole is. At least one of my suspects was taken out of the running. So let's see how this goes. This now takes us to our next mission, kind of the final mission. Well, sort of the final mission, the big mission for this group of episodes that we had here. And they head to a train. And they were going to have to break into 3 groups because they were going to be collecting mail. They're going to be mail deliveries. And one team was going to have to go by train, one team on foot, and one team on car. The team on the train was going to be a test of nerves, they said, which really, it wasn't really a test of nerves. They had these long sticks. They had to reach out over the train along the side and grab these bags and try and hook them and get them onto the train. The team on foot had to kind of run. It was a long run. I think it was 7 miles almost. They had to run and they had to go and stop and grab packages along the way. And then the car, they had to go and kind of navigate their way to find these different mailboxes and then get to the train station. But there's a little bit of a catch because 18K is up for grabs here, but each package kind of is its own value. And the only ones that count are the ones that make it there before the train. So the people on the foot, they have to beat the train. The people on the car, they got to beat the train as well. On foot, we had Pranav, Will, and Avery. In the car, we had Jacob and Joy. Oh no. Joy, who is a pilot, has not shown the best navigation skills so far. So let's see how that one works out. And then on the rail, on the train, we had Greg, Kessie, and Casey. So the rail going really well, right? Greg grabs the first bag. Everything seems good. On foot, Avery's struggling. She's not really able to keep up with Will and Pranav as well on these long runs. Is she still doing that thing where she's kind of playing it up to get people to think she's the mole and vote for her and kind of get eliminated? We'll see. But yeah, she's definitely having a hard time with this. And in the car, they missed the turn. They got to turn around. It's a whole debacle in the car. Kessie ends up missing the second bag on the train. So Greg's like, is she the mole? Is she throwing this? Like, what's going on? On foot, they ended up getting a choice. They could actually take bikes. There were 3 bikes for them, but they would have to take 2K out of the pot in order to take these bikes. They end up taking it because Avery just can't keep up with them, and they're probably not going to make it back to the train, which ended up being really good because they barely made it with not too much time to spare. For the car, they missed the second package. They're like, let's just keep going. We missed it. Let's just keep going. If we can find the third one, great. If not, we just got to head straight to the train because we don't have that much time left. They do end up missing the third mailbox, but they see it and they're like, oh, it's right there. Do we have time to go back and get it? They do choose to turn around and go and get that package before heading to the train station. The team that was on foot, Will, Pranav, and Avery, they end up making it there before the train. So all of their packages they got, the 3 packages, they all count. The train ended up getting 2 packages. The car, though, does not beat the train. In fact, it was pretty close, 18 seconds. So if they didn't turn around to go get that package, at least one of their packages would have counted. But since they didn't make it, That is no money from them. So that brings the total for the bank up a little bit. They upped it a little bit. 11K into the pot, bringing it to $14,500. Still so much lower than it possibly could have been, thanks to Joy for that crazy bid. So that's how they ended up doing it. And then it's time for lunch. They're like, hey, Will's like, yo, I'm hungry. Like, I'm ready to eat. But like always, there's a little mind game with this. So on the table, there's a bomb. Yeah, literally, it's a bomb with 15K strapped to it. And they sit down and they're all sitting around, and then it's revealed that two of them are sitting on the triggers. They're sitting on the detonators. It's like a dead man switch. If they get up, it'll blow. And they're going to have to vote out two people each round. And at the end of it, they want at least one person who's still sitting on a detonator. But you might ask, how are they going to figure out who's on a detonator and who's not? Because the other little aspect to this is, if you're there at the end, you have a chance to get an exemption. So how's this all going to work out? Well, they bring them out some food. And the answer is all based on the food. So the first one are these I've never really seen them before. It's, I guess, some kind of Australian dish that they serve. It was like a pie with peas in it. And they said, hey, the two of you that have detonators, yours are delicious. Your food tastes great. Everybody else, you have some wasabi peas, so it's going to be kind of spicy. It's going to be a little nasally for you. Your sinuses are going to be going crazy here. So they have to kind of, pretend like, yeah, this food's great, because you don't want to get voted off. You want a chance at the exemption at the very least. But you also want to make sure that the people who have the detonators aren't getting voted off, because if both of them are eliminated, that's when the bomb will go off. You need at least one person still sitting on that detonator to make sure it doesn't go off. So they have the first round, and Casey and Pranav are voted off. Neither of them were on the detonator. The second course comes on out, and it's beer. It's a nice pint of beer, or carbonated apple cider vinegar. Avery and Greg, they get voted off, and no lights go on, so neither of them were on the detonator either. The third course comes, and it's some kind of like meringue dish. It looked good. It was a little dessert, and the two people who are on the detonators, theirs taste delicious, but the others have chili in it, so some spicy chili. Jacob and Kessie are the ones who are voted out. And with Jacob, it's fine, right? Nothing, no big deal. But Kessie was on a detonator. So that means that we had Joy and William, the only two left. One of them's on a detonator, one isn't. So as long as we have one, 15K going in the pot. Great. This is perfect. But now we have a choice. And which one of them was bluffing, they were the ones that would have to get up and go make this choice. Turns out that William, he had great food. He was sitting on the detonator the whole time. He's like, my food tasted great. Joy's like, all right, I got to get up. I'm the one who has to go make the decision. So she pulls the little cloche over the top of the thing and says, here are some wire cutters. If you go cut the wire, the bomb is defused. 15K goes into the bank. Boom, bang, bun, done. Right? Everything's fine. She goes and opens the other one, and she pulls it off. She starts reading it out. She's like, so you can, and she stops. And William, don't stop reading. What are you doing? And it actually says, like, you don't have to read this aloud, but if you let the timer run out, 15K will not go into the pot. You get an exemption, and you do not have to compete in the quiz. You do not have to take the quiz, and you will be safe. Joy has already taken 25K from the pot. Will she take another exemption and not let 15K go into the pot? She would bring the total back up, right? She would kind of like undo what she did. The pot would end up being more than what it was when she took the 25K out. But she's already shown she's taken an exemption already. So what's going to happen? Well, we'll have to find out, because that was the end of episode 5. They're killing us with these cliffhangers on each episode. But you know what? It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed these 5 episodes. We're going to get another batch of episodes next week. So next Friday on the 14th, we'll get another batch. And then the following Friday on the 21st, we're going to get the finale. And that is when we'll find out who wins. I'm excited. I'm ready for more. This was so much fun. I really enjoyed it. And I want to know what you guys think down in the comments down below. I also have a couple questions for you. Like, first, would you have looked at the dossiers? Would you have made a bid? And how much would your bid have been? Also, do you bring a player back for 10K? Oh, also, would you have pressed the button? If you were in the room, would you have wanted to press the button, or would you want to just stay, relax, and get the 10K? I want to know all that stuff from you down and below. Also, would you have taken this final exemption from Joy? Would you have taken the exemption, or would you have added the 15K? These are all really interesting things that I want to kind of hear what you guys would have done if you were on the show. Plus, who do you think is the mole? Speaking of, that brings us to this really cool website here that Netflix has set up. So this is a little quiz that Netflix has done. Think you know who the mole is? Well, prove it. Take our quiz to suss out whether you're on the right track. There's spoilers, but again, if you made it all the way through this video, we just talked about the whole thing. So let's kind of see what we can do here. First question. In episode 1, does the mole's group make it back to the plane with the red case after the mission? Okay, so let's go back and think. Who was in each group, and who are we kind of thinking is potentially the mole? So in group number 1, which was the ones who went to the trees, that was Avery, William, Kessie, and Dom. There's 3 people that are still in it, so that's a large amount that is in there. But am I really worried about Avery? I don't think Avery actually is the mole, personally. I'm not convinced on that. William, there's potential, but William's also been doing really well in these missions. Is he just doing really well and letting everybody else fail? Kessie might be a dark horse mole. Kessie could be somebody that I could see kind of flying under the radar, doing things subtly, and doing little sabotages here or there. Then we had the team that was down low, and honestly, unless you think Joy is the mole, then no, you don't answer down low. And then we also have Team H2O, which had Greg, Casey, Pravon, and Jacob. Again, all players who were still in the game. So statistically here, when I'm trying to answer this, unless you think the mole is Joy, you should answer yes. I think yes is kind of the safe vote here to kind of just statistically go with it. So I'm going to go with yes. Because as much as Joy has taken money out of the game, did she need those exemptions to stay if she was the mole? No, but also it would be kind of good cover to be like, look, I'm just trying to play the game here. But let's go on to this. Oh, here we go. Does the mole have hair past their shoulders? Is another one where it's like, all right, how do we think about this? You've got Avery, who's got hair past her shoulders. You've got Casey, Joy, Kessie, and William. Large majority do have hair past their shoulders, but if it's Jacob, he doesn't have hair past his shoulders, but Pranav doesn't either. Greg, I guess Greg does. Greg kind of does, sure. So it's like, ooh, it's a tough one. I'll be honest, I really think there's a good chance that Jacob is the mole. Pranav could be the mole, even though I really like him. Kessie, William. I'm gonna actually say, and statistically, this might not be a good answer, but just based on who I actually think the mole is, I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say no. In episode 1, what group is the mole in for the plane challenge? So we talked about this already. Team high, team low, team H2O. We got the water there. Unless you think it's Joy, if you think it's Joy, you answer low. But is it someone who is on team high, or is it someone who is on team water? Oh, it's tough. I really think more of the people that I think are the mole were on team water. So I'm gonna answer water. In episode 2, does the mole's team press the red button first for the password challenge? Now remember, this goes back to whether or not you would press the button. If you press the button, you would get exemption, and the first team to do that would be the one to get the exemption. The other team would have to take the quiz and try and figure out, what was happening there. The two teams, how they broke down, we had Dom, Jacob, Joy, William, Kessie, and Samara on one team, and you had Casey, Avery, Pranav, Greg, and Sandy on the other. It's tough because they're mixed here. A lot of the people I think could be the mole are on different sides. And you know what? I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say the mole was on the team that pressed the button first. I'm going to say yes. Question 5. We're halfway through this thing. In episode 2, was the mole sitting in the frontmost seat of the car they took to the lab? Oh, I don't remember. This is a 50-50. I'm going to say no. I'm just going to say no. That's what I'm going with. In episode 3, what mode of transportation does the mole travel for the island mission? Were they on the seaplane or the boat? Ooh, another good question. So let's look. What were the groups for that? Let's see. We had... Where is that in my notes here? Where did I put that? All right, so for Team Boat, we had Will, Greg, Jacob, Joy, and Casey. And then for Team Plane, Pranav, Avery, Dom, Kessie, and Sandy. Statistically, it's smarter to say Boat. It's smarter to say Boat, but do I think Avery or Pranav are the mole? I'm not 100% sure I'm sold on either of them being the mole. I'm going to say Team Boat. Question number 7. In episode 3, where is the mole when Alex arrives at the villa in the morning? Inside or outside? Oh, okay. Yeah, I did not pay attention to this. I did not pay attention. So in that episode, Alex does arrive, and that's when she starts telling him about the what do they call them? The mind games that they were doing. And were they outside or inside? I don't know. Let's say outside. Let's just say outside. In episode 4, did the mole want Dom to return? Yes, no, or was it unclear? So Sandy was very against it, but Sandy isn't here. Pranav, that's unclear, I think, right? Because Pranav, he gave his answer, but then he kind of said he was on the fence later on. Casey was very against it. Avery ended up being against it. Joy was against it. Pretty sure William wanted him back. Ooh, this is a tough one. I'm going to say no. They did not want him to return. Question number 9 in episode 5. Which team is the mole on for the male challenge? Train, foot, or car? Again, we were just talking about this one as well, how the groups all broke down. We had for foot, Pranav, Will, and Avery. For the car, it was Jacob and Joy. And then for the rail, it was Greg, Casey, and Kessie. Is another one where you really have to go and kind of nail this in on who do you think is most likely the mole. I have a lot of suspicion on Jacob still. Pranav, I like him, but maybe he's the mole. And then you know what? Kind of somebody who I'm thinking about too. Kessie is a dark horse for the mole, but so is Casey. Casey's another one where she did really well in the boat competition, but a lot of the other ones she's been a little hesitant on wanting to keep money in. She was very willing to take money off the table in the prison mission as well. So she's a possible candidate too. Oh, any of these could really be it. And, oh, this is a tough one. This is a tough one. You really have to make a decision here, Ori. I'm going to say rail. I'm going to say they were on the train. And the final question, who is the mole? We've got Avery, Dom is out of it. Jacob, Kessie, Pranav, Sandy's out of it. William, Samara's out of it. OC's out of it. Joy, Greg, or Casey. Who do I think is the mole? Is a tough question. There's lots of suspects. Avery seems to be like she's on the track of Jacob, and it's keeping her around. But is she just doing a good job on the quizzes? Oh, it's a tough one. It's real tough. Do I hedge my bets? I'm gonna go with the one who I think is, again, kind of that under the radar, maybe isn't the obvious choice that they would be a mole. I'm going to say it's Kessie. I'm going to say the mole is Kessie. The quiz is complete. See if you're close to winning the prize pot or if you've been eliminated. Remember, green is good, red is bad. Let's see. Oh, I've been eliminated. I've been eliminated, folks. Sorry, you've got the wrong hunch about who the mole is. I want to know. Did you guys do better on the quiz? Let me know. We have a Discord, actually. You can head on over and join the Discord. We got links in the description down below. Hit me up on Twitter. Hit me up on Discord. I have a Twitch as well. The link for that will be down there in the description as well. And in a pinned comment. Plus, I'm going to post the link to this site so you could play it along as well. And let me know how you did. Like, send me a tweet. Hit me up in the Discord. I want to know, are you on the right track? Did you figure it out? Yeah. Let me know in those comments down below, all your answers to who you think the mole is. Would you have pushed the button? Would you have looked at the dossier? What would you have bid if you didn't look at the dossier? Do you bring a player back for getting 10K, or do you let that player walk? And also, would you take an exemption or 15K for the pot? I want to know all those things down in the comments down below. Plus, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, this is a long one. This is a real long one. If you made it all the way to the end of this, smash that like button. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a video, you never miss a stream. Like I said, links for all my socials will be in the description down below and a pinned comment as well. I do want to get Twitch kind of up and running again. I've been neglecting it for too long. I've been neglecting it. So I want to get back on the grind over there as well. And thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And I hope you're liking the mole because I'm really loving it. And I will see you next time.